Rise today in opposition to the killing of American citizens without trials. I rise today to oppose the nomination of anyone who would argue that the President has the power to kill an American citizen not involved in combat and without a trial. I rise today to say that there is no legal precedent for killing American citizens not involved in combat, and that any nominee who rubber stamps and grants such power to a president is not worthy of being placed one step away from the Supreme Court. As our soldiers began to return from Afghanistan, I asked them to explain in their own words what they had fought for. And to a soldier, they would tell me they fought for the American way, and they fought for our Bill of Rights. But a mature freedom defends the defenseless, allows trials for the guilty, protects even speech of the most despicable nature. After 9/11, we all recoiled in horror at the massacre of thousands of innocent Americans. We fought a war to tell other countries that we would not put up with this, that we would not allow this to happen again. I think it's a disservice to their sacrifice not to have an open and full-throated public debate about whether an American citizen should get a trial before they are killed. Let me be perfectly clear. I'm not referring to anybody involved in a battlefield. Anybody shooting against our soldiers, anybody involved in combat gets no due process. What we're talking about is the extraordinary concept of killing American citizens who are overseas but not involved in combat. Is transparency good enough for you to cast aside the whole concept of presumption of innocence? The whole concept that an accusation is different than a conviction. There's been much discussion of what due process is, and as we've looked at this debate, there are some really valid questions and some good writing that's been on this. Connor Friedersdorf has written extensively on this and writes about the lawyer who enabled extrajudicial killing of an American. He asks the question, he says, should the Constitution be entrusted to a man, and this is essentially what happens, a circuit court and appellate court judge, the Constitution will be entrusted to him. Should it be entrusted to a man who thinks that Americans can be killed without due process? Some say the filibuster was, that was obstructionism. The filibuster was also, in many cases, about trying to prevent extremists from getting on the bench. We will now allow someone who has an extreme point of view, someone who has questioned whether or not guilt must be determined beyond a reasonable doubt, someone who now says that an accusation is enough for the death penalty. Now that person may say, only if you're overseas. Well, some consolation if you're a traveler. What I would say is that we need to think long and hard and examine this nomination objectively as if this were a nomination from a president of the opposite party. We need to ask ourselves, how precious is the concept of presumption of innocence? How precious are our Bill of Rights? We need to ask ourselves also, it is hard. We need to examine. It is hard when you know someone is guilty, when you've now seen the evidence and you feel this person deserves punishment. I sympathize with that and think that this person did deserve punishment. But I also sympathize so greatly with the concept of having a jury trial, so greatly that an accusation is different than a conviction, that I can't allow this to go forward without some objection. I hope this body will consider this, and I hope this body will reconsider this nomination, and at the appropriate time I will offer a unanimous consent. This agreement, this unanimous consent request will be to delay the David Barron memo, to delay the David Barron nomination till the public has had a chance to read this memo, and I will return at an appropriate time and we will offer that as unanimous consent. Thank you, Mr. President.